when I say the word pet, a lot of you guys think of the same thing, a cat or a dog. Now, some people might think of maybe a hamster or a guinea pig. Others might be really into reptiles, maybe you think of snakes and tortoises. But when someone says the word pet to me, I think of my first pet, which was a leopard gecko that I so affectionately named Princess. I was very young. When I got this gecko, it was the coolest thing that I'd ever seen. Before this, okay, I was probably like 8 years old. So before this, the only gecko I'd ever seen was the Geico gecko, which was like green and skinny and slimy looking. And I was like, ew, Dad, we're getting a gecko? Why? Like, gross. And then we got this purple spotted gecko that just looked so cool. And if you look her straight in the face, she's like smiling at you all the time. She was like the coolest little thing. The unknown to me, my parents had actually got her from somebody who had gotten her from someone else. So she had had 2 owners previous to us. The first owner was a teenage boy who got her on a whim, didn't know what to do, wanted to get rid of her. Gave her to one of my dad's coworkers who thought she'd be able to take care of, and she didn't know the first thing about dealing with a reptile. And then it came to my family, which, lucky for Princess, my parents were very willing to learn more about her specific needs, what she doesn't need, and how to make sure that she's healthy. When we first got her, her tail was actually pretty slender. We took her to the vet and found out that leopard geckos' tails are supposed to be plump, and that's how you know that they're healthy. So we got heat lamps, mats, a place for her to cool off, everything that she needed, and put it all together in her cage, and she ended up living with us for 15 years. Now, you guys might not think that a leopard gecko is very exotic, but even this small little creature took a lot of time and effort and knowledge in order to help her thrive. More exotic animals like tigers and bears and monkeys take even more effort and more knowledge and more preparation, and therefore should not be kept as household pets. When owned by private individuals, exotic animals suffer without proper care due to the individual ownership's incompetence. They also pose safety issues as well as health issues to those that they are around. Many of you are probably thinking, why is this such a big deal? Like, you don't see somebody walking down the street with their pet tiger, so how is this even a thing? Like, you wouldn't imagine that it was actually a big issue. But according to Born Free USA, a wildlife charity, it's really difficult to estimate how many exotic animals there are per state because there's no way of regulating that number. But the estimated value for the number of tigers owned by private individuals is about 5,000. Now we're going to take that number and compare it to something else. According to the World Wildlife Foundation, the estimated population for tigers in the wild is only 3,890. So we're looking at a really big issue here. There are more tigers that are being owned by private individuals than there are in the wild themselves. By nature, exotic animals are wild and potentially dangerous, and as such, don't adjust very well to being held in a captive environment. They require special care, different housing and feeding, and a lot of effort on their owner's behalf. Let's take a monkey for example. So a monkey, by nature, as we know, is a very social creature. When they're babies, they're very codependent and attached to their owners. They need everything from them, and people just love the idea of having a monkey as a pet, a cute little baby monkey. But those cute little baby monkeys turn into adult monkeys, and those adult monkeys are perpetual toddlers, to say the least. They are very aggressive when they don't get their way. They're super social in nature, so if you aren't giving them the attention that they think that they need from you, then they will lash out. There have been multiple cases of owners being bit by their pet monkeys, and then after one incident, they're like, oh, nope, I can't take care of this thing anymore. So they go to give it to a zoo or a sanctuary. But because they haven't been properly socialized, they can't be taken in by those foundations or different locations, because if they were to put that animal in with the rest of the monkeys, they wouldn't be able to socialize, and they would hurt themselves or hurt others. These animals usually end up being euthanized because they're just not properly socialized. Now, in an attempt to make sure that owners don't get hurt, they do certain things like declawing or defanging. Now, this also causes damage to the animal themselves. If you declaw an animal, it's not able to defend itself. If you defang a snake, it's not able to eat as it's properly intended. And if you can no longer care for your animal and you decide to give it away, that animal isn't going to be able to survive and again end up being euthanized. We all know that exotic animals are very dangerous. And that's why individuals opt to defang and declaw in the first place. But if you're going to the extent where you are opting to defang and declaw an animal, why would you bring it into your home in the first place? There are over 1,000 recorded events of exotic animals gone bad as pets, but the reality is I'm only going to give a couple of them to you today. I could go on, but there are a few of them that stood out to me. One of them being August 28, 1999, a 3-year-old in Illinois was strangled to death by a python that was owned by its parents. This is one of the unique instances where the parents were actually charged with child endangerment and the exact phrasing was unlawful possession of a dangerous animal. And they ended up going to prison for this. Most often in cases, only the animal is harmed in the end. So, the person is too, but the only animal gets the blame. So, the Walls family in Pennsylvania, they owned a 350-pound black bear that they had raised ever since it was a cub. Now, the child of, I can't remember the parent's name, but Katie Ann was the girl that was raised along with this black bear. She went into the cage to clean out the cage as she normally does, and for whatever reason, this black bear felt threatened and attacked her and mauled her and killed her. And a neighbor who had witnessed the incident just shot the bear dead, and that was the end of it. In addition to physical harm, exotic animals can also pose a major threat to our health and the health of people around us. 90% of reptiles carry and shed salmonella in their feces, as well as monkeys who carry, they transmit different diseases like Ebola and herpes B, which is deadly to humans. Though we live in a state with some of the strictest laws against exotic animal ownership, California is not immune to the issues revolving around the topic. There are definitely things that we can do in order to make ourselves better and make this topic more well known. The first being reporting things that you see. So if you see an animal, exotic or not, that's not being treated properly, it should be reported to the proper humane society, then that way that issue can be taken care of. Not being treated properly could be physical abuse as well as deplorable living conditions. The second thing that we can do is make sure that we're educated of our animal safety laws. Yes, we do have animal safety laws, and yes, it is illegal to treat an animal wrongly or to own certain animals at all whatsoever. And the last and most important thing is that when you're seriously considering getting a pet, make sure you do your research. Go and find out what that animal needs, what their likes and dislikes may be, how much they need, how much space they need as an environment, and the different things that will help them so that they can thrive. My princess was lucky to end up in a home that was willing to look into the type of animal that she was and provide the needs in order for her to thrive. All animals deserve the opportunity to thrive in an environment where they are safe. And exotic animals like tigers, monkeys, and bears only thrive in one place, the wild.
Lucky girl. Yes!
Eric, what did you think?
I didn't think she had a preview, but I think I kind of found out at the end of what she was trying to get, that some animals belong in the wild and some can be owned. But I like her personal example of her gecko and how the owners before weren't taking care of her, and she acknowledged that. But and the next example of the Walls family owning the black bear, that was pretty. That got my attention. And then the end when she gave the statistic for the reptiles and the monkeys carrying certain diseases and the solutions that we can do to help prevent these animals from either being abused or owned at all. But we can educate ourselves and all that. So overall, I thought it was pretty good.
All right. It does take you a while to get to your point. I do like the introduction, but it does, maybe be a little bit briefer and to the point, because it takes you over 2 minutes to get to your purpose statement. On the other hand, it is quite engaging, and it kind of does generate interest in what you're talking about. And so I wouldn't say that you wanted to change it too much, just maybe make it go a little bit quicker so that you can get to that point a little bit faster. I know what Eric means about the preview. I think I heard a preview, but it went by very quickly, and it's like this half of a sentence that kind of passed by. I said, I think that was the preview, So, and that's the way it's going to be organized. And then in the body of the speech, I didn't really hear the signposting on those individual points, but I could make them out because of the examples and the information that you presented. I think you could use a little bit more information in a couple of spots, but what you had was interesting. Some nice dramatic examples about some of the potential problems that animals present. Some of the things that you mentioned, disease, for instance, is a potential pitfall that animals are known to carry, particular kinds of diseases. If there was an illustration of an outbreak or somebody who got infected, that would probably add a little bit to that segment of the speech. But the other, animals that are potentially dangerous, let's face it, you're talking about, animals that bite or claw or maul, as it turns out. I don't want to. I don't know that I want to make it too morbid, but maybe a little bit more detail on the 2 stories of kids that were killed by the animals there, and give us some detail there to make it more compelling. You kind of present it as a matter of fact sort of thing instead of the story about what's going on. And the fact that it happened, that's important. But if you want to get the emotional reaction to it, I think you could add a little bit more to that. And make it work. Your presentation is very effective, with the exception of maybe your feet. You've got nervous feet. That's where your anxiety seems to be coming out. Otherwise, you've channeled it pretty well. I think that your gestures are engaged. Your voice there's a lot of variety in it. Your facial expressions. You have to check your notes occasionally, but not too much. Like everybody else, follow that guideline. If you have to look at your notes, do it about that much and no more. All right? Because you're kind of right on the brink there. All right. Thank you.
Oh my God.